Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. I am joined here by a plethora of really handsome gentlemen. I thought it was only going to be one super handsome gentleman, but we got two others to join us today. And David had a great idea. David was going to do a stream, Lucifer means Lightbringer, and we decided that we would all get together here on Channel Azor Hype to discuss the most recent teaser trailer, The Crypts of Winterfell. Some juicy things in there. We are probably over speculating, but this is something that we need to do as Game of Thrones Season 8 gets closer, and there's lots to talk about. So let me introduce my guest. First of all, my co-host, as you know, on Wednesdays, but today, Monday, JR from GeekChat1. What's going on, JR?
Not much. Thanks for having me, Kyle. This can't wait to have a great discussion with Aziz and LML. This will be a fun one.
Yes. Of course, we have Lucifer means Lightbringer. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm happy to hear across the streams with you, Kyle.
Excellent. Cross our swords. Wait,
yeah, like you were saying, I was kind of excited by the promo, and I was like, hey, what the heck? Let's do an impromptu stream. And I messaged you about it, Kyle, and you were like, well, I've actually already got one planned. And I was like, hey, let's just.
It's funny because I was in the shower and then I see my hands were all wet. I know, super descriptive.
You were already thinking about. He was already thinking about David. You, David. That's where the story is going. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, our swords got crossed. So Lucifer means Lightbringer, and we have, of course, I like to call him the Godfather of Westeros, Aziz from History of Westeros.
Hey there, guys. You know, I'm a little confused though, because are we expecting somebody else? You said that there were two other handsome guys, and so hey, yeah, this is cool. I like that. That trailer was really neat, or teaser was really neat. So it's a good opportunity to come together and have a chat about it. It's our first little new material, truly new material, even if it's maybe calling it new. Oh well, we'll talk about that. So yeah. It's good. It's fun. It was good excuse to be here.
We were just talking before the stream how we think that we may be getting the actual trailer during the Super Bowl, as that is a great marketing tool for big TV networks, movie networks that want to release movies and they want to get big promos out for trailers or upcoming snippets of upcoming movies and TV shows. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about that. But we got a little bit of something to talk about today, and we all agreed that we would kind of go through it from start to beginning, and then we'll open up a Q&A period because David has some interesting thoughts on a brand not being in there, and Aziz has some very interesting thoughts about Jon, Arya, and Sansa, and the parallels with Aegon and his sister wives. So we'll get into some questions after, but first we got a donation to shout out here. Bubba Husky says, so Kyle, what do you think about Jon's overlooking of Lyanna's statue in the crypts, but him stopping and acknowledging Ned's? You know what we're going to do, Bubba? We're going to actually save that, and then I'll list the whole panel once we get to that point in the actual trailer. So David, what do we start off with in the trailer? We start off with Lyanna's words in the Tower of Joy scene to Ned.
Which, of course, led me to wear my Sanrixian Lyanna t-shirt, which you can get at sanrixian.com. But yeah, you got to love that. So it starts off, the first thing you think is, oh, this is like a Jon RLJ type thing. But it quickly broadens out to all the Starks, which is kind of cool. And I think that's a little bit of a thematic nod there where, like, yes, the RLJ thing might start off the season and it's going to be a major driving force. But ultimately, it still leads back to the Crypts. And it leads back to the secret of the Starks, and the Targaryen infusion of RLJ, and possibly the Dragon Lords of the Great Empire of the Dawn, still all comes back to the Starks. They're the center of the story, and so I thought that was cool. Like that immediate shift from RLJ to like actually all three Starks, but maybe there's still clues about Targaryens, anyways, as Aziz is going to talk about.
Very interesting. Very interestingly enough, Bubba Husky knows how much I hate Ned and Ashera theories. So he says, I'm referring to it as a pro N+A blind eye turn. Bubba is one for trolling in the chat in many different streams. So thank you, Bubba, for the donation. Very interestingly enough, Aziz, what are your thoughts on this as Lyanna's words come to life again within this trailer?
Well, I think it's part of kind of, I guess we could call it like a vignette of different quotes that are meaningful And as you guys have sort of hinted at, it's a lot of it is going back to the beginning. Yeah, it's sort of like to get to the light, you have to pass beneath the shadow. To go east, you have to go west. All that's sort of business. We're going back to the beginning. We're going back literally to Winterfell, where the story started, not counting the prologue. And the crypts are also the beginning of the Starks in that sense. And they've been foreshadowed to be important for a long time. So it's a lot of things kind of coming full circle in that sense. And it's also relating to some other themes, which I think is what made the teaser particularly cool, is the way they managed to fit a lot of different cool ideas and themes in there at once.
One interesting thing that I love to talk about, and you guys also, especially David, loves to talk about mythology, is the hero's journey. And usually within the hero's journey, they return to where they were previously, where they started, and the world has changed. So I think we're gonna, especially for Jon, because he's gone beyond the wall, and he went to meet with Daenerys. Now he's returning with Daenerys, and all of these things are happening. And we know that the Night King has breached the wall. So there's all of these different things that are happening that are going to affect Winterfell as a whole. And we associate ourselves with Winterfell as kind of our main hub, other than King's Landing. Or I think we have more of an attachment, obviously, with Winterfell, because we care about the characters there a little bit more than the others. JR, what are your thoughts on this very interesting symbolism down in the Crypts of Winterfell?
Well, there's a ton of symbolism, but like Aziz said, there's a lot of callbacks, and I think all of us pretty much agree that there was going to be a lot of season 1 callbacks throughout the series in the final season. And this is kind of a nod to that. I really think, the feather falling was just perfect. I mean, what a deep cut back to Robert putting it in her hand, right? Loved it. It was done well.
Robert specifically says that he wished that Lyanna would be amongst the trees in nature, that so the light could shine on her because she was so beautiful. And you could see that he did love the idea of love with her. So that is very interesting. But what do you think about that, guys? The idea of the feather freezing as well, because that was a representation for Robert of his love for Lyanna. What are your thoughts on that, David?
So me and my friend Ravenous Reader were looking at that feather and thinking about as sort of a nod to Bran and skin changing animals, that kind of thing. But it's pretty general. And like you were saying, that's also a nod to that Robert and Lyanna moment. So I don't know, because Robert's infatuation with Lyanna I don't know if that's important enough to be represented in this scene. Like, this scene is about the Starks and the others. And this is like the very core of the story, but Bran isn't there. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But you look at that feather, and it could be representing simply just like the freezing over of all life too. It could just be the stand-in for nature, because there's no plants or animals in the crypts. It's all stone. You put that one feather in there and it really stands out, and then you freeze it over. At the very least, it tells you like nature is getting frozen, right?
Blue Dragon has an awesome suggestion, comment in chat. The feather fell once before, Sansa put it back. So that's pretty interesting, it falling again. We obviously have things that are repeating within the Song of Ice and Fire, like we're speaking of, where the return to Winterfell, and obviously the Crypts of Winterfell. We went down there a few times, and of course Jon's dream of not thinking he belongs down there with the other Starks. That is very interesting, Aziz. Something that when he's passing by Lyanna and then looking at Ned. So that is something that we can factor in kind of with this symbolism as well.
I like this comment right here from Connie Super. She's saying the feather falling is Robert's lies falling and the truth coming out. That kind of makes sense.
It's a good deep cut.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah, and I guess you could say that if Robert, referring to his desire to have her out in nature, it's kind of like nature's coming to her.
Some people had some very interesting thoughts on the feather as well. The outside being speckled with white and the inside being red and brownish in color. So an iced in fire feather, some people are saying. I think that's reaching, but we're trying to get every little advantage we have here. One thing that I also thought was very interesting is Jon with the torch walking through the Crypts of Winterfell, and the idea of Jon being this Lightbringer type of figure, or this fire symbolism, him being an Azor Ahai-like type of person, or maybe even Lightbringer himself. Some people do
absolutely.
have, the idea that Rhaegar was Azor Ahai. So, JR, what are your thoughts on that? With like super huge symbolism with Jon walking through the crypts with the torch, lighting the way.
It totally is, but the thing that I loved about it is it's Jon in the books in his dreams, and he can never complete the dream, right? So this is really well done for a teaser. I guess we should ask that. I'll ask that question in a second here. But, as he's going through in the light and everything that they're doing with it and the balance of it, it's really nice. But it's also him completing his dream from the books and trying to discern if he really belongs down there or not. Is he truly a Stark or not? And some of the lines in the previous season, like when he's talking to Theon, is another big one. Well, you can be both. You're a Greyjoy and you're a Stark. The foreshadow for him.
On GeekChat1, by the way, which is run by JR, you can find the link in the description of the video. Awesome community we have on Facebook. Michelle Deneen had an amazing connection to the feather, and she said, in ancient Egyptian mythology, a feather is a symbol of Mat, the goddess of truth and order. So very interesting that the feather is falling, perhaps representing that the truth is going to be. I mean, there's truth in the Crypts of Winterfell, obviously, with Lyanna being Jon's mother. So that's quite interesting as well. JR,
that actually makes a lot of sense, because when you get weighed against the scales of Mat is when you die. It's when you're going through that little underworld place before you either get to go to heaven or hell or whatever, their versions of it. So it kind of does make sense. At the very least, it adds a little bit of extra context and feel to the feather. But yeah, so good stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's cool.
And Aziz, it's pretty interesting. Like, I personally think when Jon finds out he's going to go like clean his sword under, the heart tree in Winterfell or something like that, and kind of like when Ned was reflecting cleaning his sword. But it's also possible he goes down into the crypts and reflects on the truth of what he's just been told, that he was never a bastard, that he was this hidden royal heir to the Iron Throne, and Jon being someone that's earned something through merit and having to do it the hard way, that is really interesting.
Yeah, and I think as far as him passing by Lyanna and not necessarily focusing on it too much, it's part of just the vignette issue, but also, or not issue, but the theme of the teaser, but also just that at this point in the story, Lyanna is kind of nobody to him. To us, she's huge. To a lot of people, she's huge. But to Jon, she's just his father's sister. She doesn't really have that much significance to him yet. Obviously, she's about to have a ton of significance to him. But it would be a little weird for him to, have a lot to, they're saving that reaction for the show itself.
Secrets of the Citadel, who is recording with Gray Area, they're doing some stuff together today, who couldn't be on here with us. She has an interesting comment in chat. She said, where did Bobby B get the feather from in the first place? Did he bring it to the crypts for that purpose, or he just find it already there? That's kind of been something that's been discussed on GeekChat1 as well, JR. The feather, is it just something he found? Like, did he specifically pick that feather from a rare bird, something that was beautiful that he wanted to associate with Lyanna?
I think it's probably a bird that he hunted of the volition, that he brought it specifically there for Lyanna. And I don't know if he's ever seen the statue before. How did he know what he was going to do with it? I don't know. But I think it was probably Corey that he hunted, and that's where it came from.
David, before we move on to the next part of the trailer and Aziz, any kind of final thoughts on the first part of the trailer? Lyanna's words, the feather falling, the kind of the truth bomb that we know that we're going to get in season 8. Anything in relation to that?
I do have some thoughts, but Aziz, why don't you go ahead if you have some?
I'm not sure I have anything else. I guess. Well, maybe one little thing. There's definitely. Though Arya and Sansa are obviously in it, and the Starks it's all part of them. The trailer's clearly more Jon centric than it is like an even split. And the quotes from the different statues are even more, directed towards Jon's story than they are towards Arya and Sansa. Obviously, Ned's quote is,
Yes.
So it being more Jon focused is something that sticks out to you.
Yeah,
well, we haven't even said. Well, everybody's probably seen the trailer. So the quote is, "You must protect him," from Lyanna. So some people in GeekChat1, as we've been discussing it in that thread, have surmised that that's a guarantee that we are getting the Kings of Winter.
That's something that we gotta definitely take a stab at later here in the discussion.
Let's keep the Kings of Winter on tap for just a second.
Okay, look, go ahead and put the Kings of Winter on hold.
David,
keep that sword on their legs for now.
If any others pop out, I am ready to go. Kyle, have you seen my foam keeper?
That is foam. That looks badass.
This is foam keeper, my man. This is a foam oath keeper that I used paint dipping to color.
You are quite the artist. Always the artist, David.
Accurate.
Always the artist, David.
Oh yeah, I'm going to be cranking out foam Valyrian steel swords. It's the Foam Forge. My new name is Foam Homat. We've already covered all this stuff.
I love it.
Foam ho.
Oh, look, we're trying to figure out the right glow paint to get a good dawn finish going.
Ooh, yeah, that would be cool. And then
sweet.
No, I'm not going to sell them, but I might be raffling them off to Patreons or something like that. So
that would be really cool. That's a great idea.
So in any case, what I want to actually mention is, since we're on the RLJ portion of this, I just want to sort of real quickly sum up just to make sure everyone knows that there is a ton of symbolism about dragons under Winterfell. There's 3 different rumors about dragon eggs being left in the crypts. There are not just about dragon eggs, but like there's 2 different ones about dragon eggs. There's a rumor the common folk sometimes say that the hot springs are heated by a sleeping dragon under the castle. And then there's, of course, Bran when he's in his wolf and he sees the fiery serpent, which seems like a stylized description of the flames of Winterfell, but it's a snake whose roar was like a breath of flame or something like that he sees. And so people have always wondered, was there actually a dragon at Winterfell and did it hatch? And it's really hard to make a coherent theory where there's actually a secret dragon that hatched that no one has seen in 4 books and it's hiding somewhere. I mean, you get pretty into the tinfoil with. I tried, but believe me, I tried to make a theory out of it. What all of it's really about is Jon Snow. Most people agree that all the symbolism about there's a dragon egg under Winterfell, there's a sleeping dragon, there's a dragon that's ready to waken fire. This is all about Jon Snow basically discovering the truth of his identity in the crypts. There's something in the crypts that shows him that he's a dragon, and hopefully it's like a powerful sword or something like that, or maybe it's a magical harp he can play and put the others to sleep or something. I don't know, but the point is the secret of his heritage is waiting down in those crypts, and that is a secret dragon waiting to wake. You think of all the dragon dreams where we see a dragon waking and it's actually, it's just Egg becoming, coming into his own as a Targaryen. Well, this is going to be Jon Snow coming into his own as the merging of ice and fire, Stark and Targ, or whatever it is. And that is going to be the waking dragon.
That's exactly what happens in, speaking of dragon dreams and speaking of Egg, that's exactly what happens in the Sworn Sword, the second one. The second Hedge Knight story, where Daemon the Second Blackfire has a dream that an egg will hatch at White Walls, and the egg is Egg revealing his heritage. So it's like the exact same thing that you're describing here. So which is just more, which backs it up completely. So yeah, I totally agree. This is and now they're showing it to us, Jon down in the crypts as a teaser. The first thing they show us for season 8, a thing that's coming for him that's going to rock his world, and his reaction to it and the ripple effect of that is going to impact Daenerys and Sansa and everybody. And
change the whole world.
But yeah, it changes the whole dynamic at Winterfell completely.
So real quick, somebody was asking, what am I talking about? So this is from the World of Ice and Fire. We can dismiss Mushroom's claim that, in his testimony that the dragon Vermax left a clutch of eggs somewhere in the depths of Winterfell's crypts, where the waters of the hot springs run close to the walls, while his rider treated with Cregan Stark at the start of the Dance of the Dragons. As Archmaester Gildane notes in his fragmentary history, there is no record that Vermax ever laid so much as a single egg. This is my maester voice, suggesting that the dragon was male. The belief that dragons can change sex at need is erroneous, according to Maester Anson's Truth, rooted in a misunderstanding of the esoteric metaphor that Barth preferred when discussing the higher mysteries. So there you go. And then there's... I love
the snarky tone of it as well.
Yes, well, George does write a pretty good maester.
So awesome first part of the trailer. Before we move on to the second part, thank you everyone for being here with us on this Monday. We know you're as excited as we all are to nerd out and finally get some more insights into what we're kind of going to see in Game of Thrones season 8. But let's move on to the next part. And it's interesting. It says next Sansa walks past Catelyn's statue, and all this horror that has come to my family is all because I couldn't love a motherless child. And this was in Dark Words, as they were going towards Riverrun, and she was telling the story to Lisa in the show. So what do we think about that, JR? Really interesting. Of course, in reference to Jon Snow again.
Right. So this is the second quote it's directly connected to Jon, even though it's Sansa passing by. It's still the effects of what Catelyn did in the show or didn't do for Jon growing up. That she thinks everything has befallen her family, right? It's interesting, and Sansa doesn't even really acknowledge the statue as she walks by, which is also kind of intriguing.
Yeah, certainly. So, there's all the speculation that Sansa is going to betray her family again, and
I really hope they don't do that.
Yeah, I don't personally. I can't see it. I will never agree to that. But I'm gonna let Aziz go here. Aziz, what are your thoughts on this? Catelyn's words being ushered in here, talking about how she couldn't love a motherless child.
I thought it was interesting. I guess they were, like we said, they're just trying to include some lines about Jon that have to deal with him. I never really understood that line, though. I thought it was a weird show-only line that didn't...
Yeah, show-only, by the way.
It was kind of a stretch, because I didn't really understand how she could think that what happened to Jon really had that much to do with what happened to her family without her knowing a lot more about it. And even that still didn't seem to matter that much. Like, why does the War of Five Kings doesn't really have that much to do with Jon's identity? I don't really get her tying that to things. So I don't know. I have a bit of a aversion to that line in the first place, because
it is a bit clunky. It just doesn't fit.
Yeah.
It's like, why did they include that? Right. Like
I can tell you why. The reason why they included it is because we're going to get Stoneheart this season, and they have to, remind us.
Dude, I ate a sock live on air for that. Okay. I thought she was even, oh God,
so you're saying there's a chance?
Well, she was totally made out of stone in the teaser there. So there you go.
Yeah, that's all you're going
to get. Oh, chat, please get some hype for that. That is
Stoneheart. They're gonna keep teasing us until that shit's over. Like, we'll be into they'll still be dropping Easter eggs about Stoneheart in the Long Night Show or something, man.
Just to
troll us? Just to troll us? And
yes,
be like, yeah,
exactly.
David, what are your thoughts on this?
No, I agree with Aziz. I mean, that's all I got to say. The original line was a little cringy to me. I have to think they brought it back for some reason, maybe not the Stoneheart, but they want to remind us that Cat exists. they want to remind us of the Stark family dynamics, I guess. And they chose that line to do it. So if we ignore the fact that we don't like that line, we can think about what they might be trying to tell us. Because I do see, okay, so the first teaser we've got the map and, you know, the wall of dragon glass and the wall of ice. And it's so abstract that it's really hard to draw much from that other than, you know, the big battle's coming. And there's a couple other nuggets people glean from it. But this one seems a lot more intentional to me. Like, this is not something the promo department did with computer graphics. Like, this is character building and foreshadowing and stuff like that. And real quick, since we kind of skipped over it, some people are still wondering, like, is this a dream from Bran and stuff? I think we probably all agree that this is not meant to be a vision or a dream or anything from the season, but rather just
promo
kind of a
footage.
Stylized promotional vignette.
Yeah, it's promo footage.
Definitely not actual footage. Yeah.
Okay. Right on. So in any case, I do think
it's a particularly good
intentional.
teaser in that, but despite this complaint about this Catelyn line, but still, that is what it is. Yeah, agree.
So, we may not actually get like we may only get a trailer with something from like the first couple of episodes. We may get more of these this year as they try to combat, you know, trying to give too much away for the final season.
And so I guess my point is that, like, some people are like, oh, you're over-interpreting. Like, Gray put out a video and someone's already, it's a 12-way little promo. You're making a video about it. And it's like, the thing is that something like this that isn't a scene from the story is specifically meant as symbolism. I mean, that's how it's meant to be interpreted. That's the whole point of an abstract kind of thing like this. They're using ideas and representations and symbols pretty much the whole time. So it's meant to be teased like this. It's meant to use as a jumping off point to discuss the themes of the story that we already know are going on, such as Jon's dragon secret in the crypts, the idea that the Starks have to confront some truth about the others that's rooted in the crypts that's just as dire as Jon's personal reveal, you know, all that stuff. So
yeah, it's all, and to be fair, that is often how dreams especially on TV shows are presented, like with a lot of the same qualities. So people thinking it could be a dream of Bran's or something, you know, like, as far as reacting to it that way, I think that's, you know, a good catch, but ultimately I think it's not that.
Totally.
Totally reasonable conclusion to go to.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
this one's it's definitely promotional footage.
Especially because they've done that so many other times in other seasons. It's easy to forget because these get swallowed up once we get like an actual trailer.
Right.
But we've had like Cersei last year, wasn't it something like Cersei, like
a long walk or
Night
something?
Queen or something like that? Or I don't even remember anymore.
All the people walking through doors, like different doors, I believe.
Yeah, and the faces, like the huge amount of faces that one time. They had like the Hall of Faces.
The Hall of Faces were showing,
Yeah, they do this, like they set up the tone and atmosphere for the season. They try to set up a theme. Obviously, we know ice and fire are going to collide, and this one was more ice-based because we know that, you know, the Starks are part of the North, and they want to tease the Starks versus the others, which we will get to at the end of the trailer here. So not too much more about this, gents. Do we have any kind of more thoughts on this, the whole Sansa Catelyn part? Good to go. Okay, so next we have Arya. There's not really too much about this, but she's dead center, walking down and looking really badass, straight faced.
Oh, you know what, Kyle? I'm sorry. I'm like 10 seconds behind you on here. Like, is there anything else? But my wheels were churning there. Just real quick.
Yeah.
When you said Sansa and Cat, and it just sort of summed it up as the Sansa and Cat section. It makes me think of that line. Okay. Cat couldn't love Jon. What if part of what Sansa has to do is pull everyone together with her kindness and sort of good heart? That could be meant as a counterpoint. The line about Cat being unable to like be warm-hearted enough to tie everyone together at Winterfell. Maybe that's, even though I think that's wrongly blaming Cat, you know, but using that line, they could be attempting to draw a comparison because what is Sansa? I mean, Sansa's biggest role is to hold down like the politics and sort of the affairs of state, while Jon and Arya are stabbing things with magic swords. So it kind of makes sense. And Sansa's best attribute really is her resilience and her kind-heartedness that she manages to retain, even through like all manner of abuse. And so I could really see her heart being something that like is really important, and in a sense that her loving Jon and loving Arya and sort of just pulling everyone together is something that will hold the Starks together, because it's not just about stabbing things.
Great point. Sorry, Aziz, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's just real quick. I mean, we already had one person eat someone's heart, so maybe someone will eat Sansa's heart. Daenerys is going to eat Sansa's heart. That's my prediction.
One really interesting.
I'm kidding. No.
Daenerys
saying eating a horse heart is foreshadowing for her.
I said all the
Sansa's
touchy-feely shit, and that's what you come at me with, Aziz?
That's all I can do. All I've got for you is blood and grossness.
So to kind of harping off David real quick here before we move on, we see these characters like Jon, Arya, Sansa all have part of their parents' personalities within them, but they're also different people. We got to remember that the world has changed them, their experiences, and I really like what you said there, Dave, because people automatically expect Sansa to default to this shit mode, and I absolutely hate that about her. We actually did a Rethinking Sansa podcast last week, but we're not going to make this all about Sansa today, but I like your thoughts on it, and I actually think that people are going to be disappointed with Sansa trying to hate on Daenerys and stuff. I don't necessarily know if they think it's going to go the way they expect in Game of Thrones season 8.
Well, in fairness, they built up all that crap drama last year with Sansa and Arya, so people expect it to go the same direction. And frankly, I can't blame them, because it was kind of junk.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was making fun of with saying Sansa's heart. Yeah.
And if you think about it, it's only natural that sorry.
And by the way, on Facebook, usually this is not common knowledge, but I'll say something to Aziz, and he'll usually troll me back with a comment like that. He's like, "No, you're the," and he'll like call me a cup of coffee or something, and like I'm like, I don't know. Aziz trolls me a lot like this. It's weird. I kind of got PTSD about it.
Post-trolling stress disorder.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
Kyle, if I could get a word in on this, on the Sansa Dany thing, I think it's only natural that they are going to approach each other cautiously. I mean, they're both politically wise people for their age who've been through just boatloads of trauma. And when you think about it, honestly, they have a lot in common and a lot to relate to. So what I expect is this to be the very typical, like, you know, two girls meet each other in high school and they're mean the first time they see each other, and then they become good friends. That's kind of what I see coming.
Like, bitch, can I take your braid style and steal it? Like, I see what you're saying.
Dude, I'm sorry, but if they're smart, they will do that, because people will go crazy about that. People will love that. They will love that.
I can't wait. I want to see that shit. I can't.
They'll be shipping Sansa and Dany, and they'll forget all about Sansa. It'll be all the rage. So
there we go. That'll be fantastic. Danza, I love it.
So we got a couple of donations. Rogue Rach, $10 US. Thank you so much, which is like $1,000 Canadian. Even if the line doesn't make any sense, I was thinking that the way Sansa walks away from her mom with barely a look means that she is going to love Jon the way that Kat could not. Talking about what David was mentioning there as well. So great point. And Niels Rain, 50 Danish Cronin. Super chat. I think Arya or Jon will kill Bran the Weirwood, so the blood can go into the Weirwood and they can survive to escape through the crypts. Interesting. We're going to talk about Bran not being in the trailer. I think that's actually the most interesting part of all the Starks being together in the trailer and Bran not being present. So thank you for that. Next part we have in the trailer. So we're moving on. Arya part, not much to do there. She's just walking at that part. Did we have specifically anything we wanted to say at that? Just Arya walking. Okay.
I'm sorry. I was completely wrapped up in the Danza chat in the
yeah,
chat.
Danza's just rolling. I'm reading his
hashtag Danza forever. This is great. We've started something. This is good. I take credit. You heard it here first. JR coined the term. I came with the concept. This was born today. You saw it. Danza right here. Let the fan fiction fly. What were we talking about? Arya now?
Yeah, Arya. Yeah, there's no quote here. The next quote actually happens when Jon is passing Ned's statue, and he looks up at the statue right at Ned, And says, and then Ned says, "You are a Stark. You might not have my name, but you have my blood." And this was really important because this is when Jon asks, we want to talk about my mother. Ned says, "We'll talk about her someday when you come back," and that obviously never happens. So let's kind of talk about this because we later find out, obviously, that Lyanna, Lyanna is Jon's mother. So
speaking of Lyanna, Eliana is here in the chat telling me she was on this dance of shit last week. That doesn't surprise me though. That's cool. I'm willing to cede to the greatness of Eliana. I'm cool with that.
Also, great podcast.
I am jumping on board. I at least get like co-pilot of the train or something.
This is Eliana from
Girls Gone Canon.
Girls Gone Canon. So if you haven't checked it out, excellent podcast as well.
So now Daenerys and Sansa actually have a song. Has anybody seen this yet?
Oh God!
Hold me closer. No, nothing. Come on.
I don't get it.
Danza. Hold me closer.
Oh, Tony Danza.
What is going on?
We're at warp speed here today. This is great.
Yeah, no, it's scrolling by so fast.
The stream is going downhill from here. We got 2 more donations. I'm gonna shout those out in just a second. This part, guys, JR, you kind of want to lead off with this one. We got Jon looking up at Ned's statue. Really interesting. Obviously, we know that Ned, said he would talk about. He was super cracked up about it, right? Like Ned loved Lyanna. He loved her so much.
So are we still holding Kings of Winter? Because I feel like this might be an appropriate time. Okay,
we can do it whenever. I don't care.
I don't know. We were holding it for a minute.
Yeah. But, you know what? We'll ask David's permission. David.
But David, do you want to hit Kings of Winter here?
Oh, you don't need my permission, but I knew we weren't quite ready then. We had some stuff to get out of the way, but yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so this is the one that a lot of people are banking on for the return of the Kings of Winter, right? So if Ned, it still has to protect him, because that's the first line that we get from Lyanna. You have to protect him, right? And now he's looking at Ned, and he said, "You might not have my name, but you have my blood." And that line of the last time that Jon and him spoke was, "When I see you again, we'll speak of your mother," before he goes to the wall. So this is where people are kind of extrapolating that this is going to bring us the Kings of Winter. And I like it. I'm going for it. I'll buy into it.
I'm going to go last on this one because I don't have. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
So, it's the classic Tolkien sort of, Aragorn going to raise the spirits of the dead to fight the last battle. It seems like George is at least playing with that idea very heavily, with the idea of the Kings of Winter rising. Me and Joe Magician did a video on it. I know Aziz has done one on the Crypts of Winterfell. And essentially, when you go down there and just take all the quotes of everybody going in the crypts, it just feels like the statues aren't even statues. They're always looking around and doing things and watching and being cold and like brooding, and they don't like the laughter, and they just they get a lot of character development is all I'm saying. So it's just the implication is there that they're ready to rise, and there's a lot of symbolism about, we need zombies and we need undead heroes to fight the others and the other zombies. Like Cold Hands is a zombie. Jon's going to be a white in the show. They've given us Beric and Jon, and who knows how many we'll get before the last battle. But there's this whole idea that, like, to fight the others and to fight a monster, you have to become a monster or employ monsters yourself. And so that's kind of where some of these ideas come from. And when we see the others walking into the crypts there, it's just really thematically, it's telling you like this confrontation between the Starks and the others has something to do with the crypts. It might not actually take place in the crypts, but just as Jon's sort of RLJ secret is hiding in the crypts, there's a secret in the crypts about the others and the Kings of Winter. And, there's a lot of good theories about how that could work out, and what that connection is. But at the very least, it's being played with. And, if the tinfoil really explodes, I mean, me and Joe Magician were talking about like maybe the first dead kings of winter are actually in those sepulchers with their corpses being kept alive by weirwood roots so that they can rise as actual zombies, or maybe their bones can reincorporate as ice bones like a good other or some shit. I mean, we went everywhere, tried to figure out what could happen.
Wow.
That is le spice, as us French Canadians would say here. Aziz, you know, Ned Stark's words have carried weight all throughout all 5 of the books that we have, and through all of the seasons. Ned Stark's words just have a supreme importance in the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. Here as well as foreshadowing that his words still carry weight.
It's true, yeah, and no better place to showcase that than the place where he's at rest, and the place where there's an image of him, which is, you know, it's kind of hard to, something we take for granted in the modern world. We have pictures of people all over the place, but you know, in that setting, they have to rely on their memory. A stone statue is kind of a rare exception of a visual representation of someone that's gone, or just someone, period, that isn't right there in front of you. That's the only time you can see them, unless there's like a painting, which is obviously not common either. So yeah, that's a really cool thing about the Crypts in general, is that you have all these great elements about the series all at once, plus you have foreshadowing and history, and that's kind of cyclical in and of itself, because as we all know, George R. R. Martin loves to use history as foreshadowing. So it's double foreshadowing. You have the history, which is in itself foreshadowing, and then you also have foreshadowing for Jon and his identity, and potentially stuff like El Mel was just saying about the potentially even conflict actually taking place in the crypts if the others find some back door, like through a cave or anything like that, that gets them face to face with people inside the castle, you know, in the lower levels. Certainly something that's mentioned as well really early in a Game of Thrones. It's one of the first scenes we get when Robert shows up. As we know, they go straight for the crypts, beeline for the crypts, and that's true in the books as well. You get that's something that's preserved on both tellings, both canons here. And something to keep in mind is that George originally planned for the series to be smaller, right? He originally planned it to be a trilogy, then it grew into 4, then 5, then 7, etc. And so a lot of the early the things he introduces early in the story, a lot of the early story elements, we'll call them, are still the core, even though there's a lot of other things that have been added around them. And because the crypts are a part of the story right away, and a meaningful part of the story right away, because you have Robert caring about them, you have Ned caring about them, and you have Jon dreaming about them, and then, you know, everything that comes after that. So getting back to it again is, again, just really fun and really important. It shows where things are kind of coming full circle.
And obviously, Ned being super important to Jon, like his values and how he carries himself in life. Actually, even the Stark girls, the values that they keep of Ned, and the memory of Ned, how he carried himself and how he was loving to the people of the North and what he meant to the North. Like, people love Ned Stark. So that is really important too. And in relation to Jon specifically, like, his identity, a lot of it is Ned. You know, that was his dad. So very, very interesting. Do we have kind of any more thoughts on that part, panel, before we move on to the Starks meeting up? And Aziz, you have an interesting thought on Jon, the kind of the triangle that Jon, Arya, and Sansa are making.
So
yeah, I guess I could say one last thing about before we move on, about the about Ned's words, and that's really good. That's a really good point, which is that you have a couple of maybe not competing, but characters that you can compare and contrast in that role, who are presented as father figures. Ned and Tywin, and Robert is kind of a weird one because he wasn't really the father to his kids.
Gior Mormont.
Sure, yeah, Gior Mormont. There's several examples. Mentors people who kind of play the role of father figure who aren't literally the father, which, you know, there's several possible ones we don't even know about. Ned and Jon is about as straightforward as it gets there. And that's gonna come up because Jon is, like you said, Jon is still, his father is still Ned. His Ned is just not his sire. He still raised him. He's still, it's kind of like an adopted kid, whether the adopted kid knows they're adopted or not. That's still your father, you know, if you're adopted by somebody. So if we're being technical, he's just not his sire. So that's a theme that's going to come up. Obviously, it probably comes up more in the books, especially with characters like young Griff, who's with other uncertain identity type characters. There's just more possibilities there, but it's still huge in the show as well, and that's great. It's going to be fun to see how all the different characters react to it. Whether there's anything to do with Tyrion seems unlikely in the show, but you know, that's another possibility. And yeah, so I think that's really fun. All this identity and the crypt stuff matters. And Ned's legacy as compared to Tywin, I think, is one of the main ones where people still care about Ned, but Tywin, you know, no one's like trying to carry the banner for Tywin. Like, let's remember Tywin and do the things Tywin wanted. No one's doing that. Well, Kevin maybe would have a little bit, but that's about it.
And piggybacking off what you're saying, Aziz, and it's sprinkled throughout the text. I mean, they go into great detail about fostering and Jon Arryn being father figure to Ned and Robert. And, you know, they go through a lot of that. So throughout Westeros, you have so many different families raising other nobles as children. So we get used to that idea throughout all of the text.
Yeah. Before we move on, we got a couple of donations. I just wanted to make sure we didn't forget about them. Shadow Fox says the Starks will be united and kick ass. Sansa will not betray anyone. Everyone hit that like button. Thank you so much, Shadow Fox. Appreciate your generosity. Helen von Landstein, make Mordor great again. Nastrovi, I hope I'm saying that correctly. Probably not. I'm the master of Kyle trolling. Let's not forget that. She's trying to take the mantle back from Aziz. Is it still Christmas in Canada? Yes. We got like 4 feet of snow last week. But yes, my ho 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 Hodor shirt. I like to wear it. And we got one more. Marvin Martin, being a dragon and wolf, Jon's eggs hatching at Winterfell would actually be a puppy egg. But since Ghost is so silent, the egg would be a hush puppy. Well, that's quite interesting, Marvin. Thank you so much for your donation.
A hush puppy.
Yeah. I'm only trying. That's true. I'm only trying to live up to Helen's level of trolling you. She sets us the bar.
But doesn't Helen troll you as well?
To get there.
Helen trolls you as well. Like, it's just
that's part of it. Yeah.
I claim this trolling for Mars.
Wow, Marvin Martian. I get it. Marvin Martin, Marvin Martian. Yeah.
You know, by the way, I also forgot to show you my Valyrian Steel Infinity Gauntlets. Yes. See, Kyle, these are for when you have a burning sword, you need Valyrian Steel Gauntlets to hold it. It's that whole like sword without a hilt thing. This is the answers. Well, they're actually Hulk. They're actually Hulk mitts that I painted them, but yeah.
Okay.
Valyrian Steel.
So the next part, we'll start off with you, Aziz, because David had something.
Like, okay, shut up.
Had something very interesting that he mentioned before the stream. So next we get Jon lighting the way with the torch, and then we see this the triangle between Sansa, Arya, and Jon. Very, very interesting indeed. The Stark reunion we've been waiting for, minus Bran, however. Aziz, there's definitely some interesting symbolism here between Jon and his sisters.
Yeah, I wonder how intentional it is. I think it's probably pretty intentional, or it just works out really well because George has written the story this way, and these things just fit together so well anyway. So the idea is that, you know, Jon is a bit of is obviously has, with his Targaryen heritage, he's got some Aegon the Conqueror in him. It's really Aegon the Conqueror's story seems to closely mirror Dany's more than Jon's, but there's some of both in there. And there's also and of course Aegon married his sisters, and you know, we don't expect Jon to do that, even though they're not his sisters. However, the symbolism, at least the characters fit really well there. You've got Jon as Aegon, you've got Arya as Rhaenys, as Visenya, even though she's the younger one in this case, and because she's wielding Dark Sister, and she's the, you know, more martial one, and Rhaenys was more about the softer personality who was better with consensus and alliances and getting along with lots of different types of people, and not known for being a warrior. And but also they all work together really well, despite having some of those differences. And I think that we expect that. I don't think there's going to be the conflict with Sansa and Arya wasn't very well done, and it wasn't really necessary either. So I really don't think they're going to go back to that well. It didn't work. It wasn't necessary. Why would they do that again? Like, that's just why, you know. So and I don't, and maybe Jon and Sansa will have a little bit of issue given the Daenerys wrinkle, but I don't see them, especially given the huge threat coming down. I really don't see them having more than just some disagreements. You know, they're not going to have any kind of real anything that comes into any kind of conflict that's of significance.
Survival is important, arguments. Obviously, for their whole house. Yeah. Like, their whole house needs to survive.
Yeah, they're not going to. Neither of them is so hung up about power or anything like that, that when the others are knocking on their door, that they're going to do anything but worry about that. So at least if they do, I'll be surprised. I could be wrong, obviously. So I think that's kind of neat, and even the names kind of work, a little wordplay, as you can say. You know, Rhaenys fits with Sansa, and Visenya, but and you have Aegon, you know, all that. So I don't think that's intentional. It just kind of happens to work out, but it's just fun. You get the little wordplay there. So
it's intentional. So it's cool. All intentional.
Okay. I'm cool with the thinking it that way. It certainly clicks nicely, so we can't say it's not intentional.
No, it's a perfect kind of thing that George likes to do, is create an echo, but instead of the Targaryen trio, it's the Stark trio. So that strikes me as very George.
Yeah, and it's a song of Ice and Fire, so it's supposed to have these names that kind of flow and are harmonious, etc. Yeah.
But of course, I do have up the amazing artwork of Urtak Altanaz.
Whoa,
is
that's
that how you
cool.
say his last name?
Urtak Altanaz, correct.
Urtak Altanaz. So this is one that he reshared this morning, like, hey, look what I foreshadowed, because he drew this a while ago. And look at this. It looks like it could be right out of the promo. It's Arya with the knife, the others walking through the crypts, and Ned's statue right there. I mean, that is an uncanny. Does he have like secret intel or what, man?
Urtak is a wizard. By the way,
he's the prophet that was promised.
He immortalized me as a white, which is like a great honor. I was like, whoa, I'm actually getting that printed. It's going to go up in my office right here before the season, when I can afford getting a proper print of it done.
Urtak is actually in the chat right now too.
Oh, he is. Can mods, can we repost his DeviantArt link in the chat? That would be fantastic.
Yeah, totally. And Kyle, I have the I've got your picture up here.
Oh, the Kyle one.
That's awesome.
Yeah, can you see it? Y'all can see it, right?
Yeah, very good.
There he is. There's Kyle.
I something about the other piece, the Crypts piece, is I'm of course we all love it because of how cool it looks, but I extra points for me because I'm definitely on team Arya slays Night King or deals the fatal blow. Maybe with probably a team effort, you know, maybe Bran slows him down, Jon's facing him, I don't know, but Arya with those assassin skills, and she has Valyrian steel, I think she's the one who deals that last blow.
You know what, Aziz, in my most recent God's Eye video, I spoke about how the coming of full circle at the God's Eye, that Bran will have to skin change / warg into the Night King, and Jon and Arya will have to simultaneously kill Bran and the Night King, so the Night King doesn't take over Bran's body. And or we have the scenario where Bran kind of becomes like Khal Drogo. So Bran giving Arya the dagger is definitely something.
Yeah. Like the whole pack survives business kind of points to them all having to work together in this climactic moment-ish. So I like it.
I have an interesting question to pose to the panel here based on what Aziz said, based off the Aegon Rhaenys Visenya stuff that Aziz was talking about. The original outline had Arya and Jon and Tyrion in a love triangle. So very interesting, kind of some of the symbolism that's happening here. Of course, I don't think that's going to happen, and I know most of the panel does not think that's going to happen. But the teamwork that Aziz spoke about, David, can we kind of talk a little bit about that, like them being the team, like a team like Aegon, Visenya, and Rhaenys?
Yeah, I mean it's right there. I mean, you take a look at the story of the conquest, which was fleshed out even a little further in Fire and Blood, and you can see that not only was Aegon Basically the two places we can see Aegon's wisdom is in the mercy that he showed the people that kneeled to him even after fighting against him for a while, and the flexibility he showed in letting people sort of govern locally in their own fashion to some extent. And the other one is the way he delegated to his sister wives. I guess that's a thing. Still sounds weird to say, but
yeah,
they were
That still sound weird.
they were the most powerful queens in the history of Westeros. We're even told that Alysanne, who would be third, was not even to be thought of as a queen in the way that Visenya and Rhaenys were. So Visenya and Rhaenys, this is more like almost co-rulers. You know, they had full authority. They made decisions. They did all kinds of crazy stuff. They fought major wars. They did not hesitate. So when you read The Conquest, that's really clear that Westeros was conquered by 3 people, not 1. So when you look at the kind of teamwork and unity the Starks will need to show, that makes a lot of sense to see them that way. They've all got to be powerful. They've all got to do their things and be relied on, and they've each got to be heroes. So it's pretty cool. And also the others are going to find a secret way into the crypts, and that's going to be bad.
Very interesting. Very interestingly, JR, we're going to get to, we have had 5 donations. Haven't forgot you guys. Thank you for being so generous. And by the way, all the donations that are happening today, I've decided that they will all go towards sharing nice food and drinks for this awesome panel at Con of Thrones. I think all of us will be there. So, or I'm just going to take that money and put it towards a nice little, because everyone seems to be donating for all of us. So we'll spread the love around. JR, right after this, they faced their statues, and they're all facing themselves as statues. So facing the idea of mortality, you know.
Right.
We know that no character is truly going to be safe. I think that's kind of what they're trying to tell us right in this moment in the trailer. What are your thoughts on that, JR?
And this one we posted right after the trailer dropped yesterday into GeekChat1, and I took stills of all the statues and them looking at them, and it seems to be a big point of contention inside the fandom. You know, Jon seems to be significantly older. Arya has a couple of things going on with her, including the throat slice that people are noticing. And then Sansa appears to be relatively the same age or a very similar age and likeness. So people are trying to guess if this is a dynamic of who's going to live and die in the episode, who's going to continue the story, who's not. So it's been pretty interesting, and there's been a lot of debate on GeekChat1 about it.
Can I just say 10 seconds worth of soundbite here?
Go ahead.
I think the statues are just sloppily done, and I think that's way too much foreshadowing to do in a promo like this, to tell us how long everybody's going to live simply by just looking at their statues. That does not make sense to me at all. Carry on.
Yeah, the other statues, some people the Ned statue not looking like him at all. So we can kind of compare it to that. I'm actually in agreement with David here. Although I do think it's interesting, Jon being compared to Aragorn, living out this longer life and being this king, like King Jaehaerys is someone that is comparable to Jon. Jon being this conciliator, person within the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. But I gotta agree with David on this one.
Beards are weird in sculpture. I mean, they look weird.
Honestly, Kit Harington himself looked older in the older there. I think that was almost certainly intentional. Because for a long time they've had to make him look younger.
How you feel, huh? You try coming back from the dead if you don't feel a little older.
Hi, my name is Jon Snow. I'm like 74.
Well, the funny thing is I thought, when I saw it of Jon and looking at him in the statue, I was reminded of Jeor Mormont, actually. I was like, oh, he kind of looks like Jeor in that. That's kind of odd.
Before we go on and get into more tinfoil, we have a bunch of donations. Thomas Pappas, great supporter of all of our channels. Thanks for getting these great minds together. Speak about this today. I needed this. You can thank David for that one. He's the one that organized this. Sword in the Darkness. Do you think Jon will have mixed emotions about Ned, the one man he truly trusted and looked up to? He didn't necessarily lie to him. He protected him. Yeah, I think he's definitely going to have mixed emotions. I think we all agree on that. Sanrixian, make Mondays great again. Thanks, fellas. We love you, Sanrixian. Someone can post her link in the description of this video. Just
And
awesome.
right now, if you use the code LML, you can get an additional 15% off on Sanrixian's site.
I think me and Sanrixian are going to have to
yeah.
do something for season 8. I have an interesting idea with Sandor Clegane. We'll talk about that after, though. Anime lover Nicole, happy Monday, y'all. Hashtag free ghost. Hashtag Sansa forever. That one's for you, Talmascadan. Hashtag Sansa life. I love it. And Lady Dreamfire, thank you for being you. I love you, Lady Dreamfire. Okay, gentlemen. Who wants to take a stab? Oh, they're all looking at all their statues. I'm kind of in agreement with David. Their eyes move, though. The statues look like they're moving. Did anybody see that?
I didn't notice that.
It seemed like torchlight it to me, but it's
To make
also
the
just
pivot.
yeah, the way those eyes do work, kind of.
That's kind of the thing, though. Every time you walk down there
Yeah.
with a torch, it kind of makes the eyes look like they're moving. I mean, George has written about that like 30 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's super symbolic. It's meant to do that, and then you can't. He's written about it, and it's because it's real. When it really does look that way. It has that effect. The dancing light. It creates all sorts of cool effects. Crypts are you don't have to work hard to make a torchlight in a crypt seem cool and creepy. It kind of just does that.
It's interesting, though, that their statues are illuminated by the fire. We know that looking into the flames, Melisandre searches for truth. So interesting symbolism down there. Obviously, the Crypts of Winterfell are cold and dark, and then Jon is. Like we spoke about earlier, possibly this Lightbringer Lightbringer type of person bringing people together in A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. And then after they face themselves, they turn around, of course. We see the cold creeping in, and Jon unsheathes his sword, and they're standing there, and Arya and Jon are ready to take on the cold. And that's kind of how the trailer ends. So, Aziz, thoughts on the end of the trailer? Very, very interesting. The Starks finally together, looking to face death, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like foreshadowing, and it seems like where the story clearly is right now. They're all at Winterfell, and the others and the Army of the Dead are coming. So it seems maybe the most straightforward part about the teaser. I mean, there could be more to it because there's multiple meanings are always a possibility. So I'll be curious to see what everybody else has to say, but I thought that at least was fairly straightforward, maybe except for whether or not it implies there actually is going to be a conflict in the crypts, literally, like as we talked about a little bit already, whether there's actually going to be an invasion from under the underground, which I think is a very distinct possibility. I'm not 100% sold on that, but I think I'm not going to be surprised by it. Obviously, if it happens, I won't be like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. But the different ways it could play out, whether or not there's anything comes from the actual crypts or whether it's just people coming through the crypts, there's some variations on the theory that might be surprising when it plays out. But the general idea of them facing down winter at last, it's as a group, I think
winter is coming. Winter is coming.
Winter has come. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So let's think about the possibility that it could be literal. Think about how the others dealt with Bloodraven's Cave. Okay, Bloodraven's Cave is magically warded. The Crypts of Winterfell very likely to be magically warded. We already know the iron swords are intended as magic wards, so wouldn't surprise us if there was actual spells set in as there is in the Wall or Storm's End. And then how did the others deal with that? Once they nullified that ward because Bran got touched with the ice or whatever, they immediately attacked. And they went straight to the heart of the operation. They knew where to go. They knew what to do to shut it down. And that is their MO. It's like they know where they need to go. They go straight for it and they try to kill it. And so if they're going to the God's Eye, it's the same idea. Like they're going there to kill the Weirwoods there or kill the last Green Men or whatever. And if you're going to Winterfell, it sort of implies, if we're following this train of thought, that maybe there is a power center down there. Maybe there's a Weirwood throne that Bran's sitting in at the very heart of it all. And you've got a replay of the whole thing with the others trying to get down to the crypts to kill Bran at the lowest level, and you've got the 3 Starks defending him. That could be a scenario. That could be a real thing.
I like it.
Because inside, and Bran would be sitting on that throne, basically trying to battle Night's King on the astral plane while the White Walkers are coming. I mean, it's basically like a replay. So they're at least playing with that.
And that they've had, how many battles have they had in the show on the astral plane? I mean, the Night King expels him when he's in the Ravens, right? So that's trying to get.
They're like little sparring matches in the show. Yeah. They have it. So you have the dispersing of the Ravens. You have the touch when he wasn't supposed to be where he was, and him
maybe
with the wind
when he's in his coma dream. Which they didn't really show in the show, but is like in the in the book he's kind of
right.
He looks into the heart of winter or whatever and gets scared. You could we should at least mention that one, whether it's fully relevant or not.
So possibly this happening at Winterfell again, and maybe then again at the God's Eye. So if it doesn't happen at Winterfell, the third time could be at the God's Eye, or this could be the third time. We know that Martin likes to do things in threes. Very interestingly enough, numerology is important, and we know a number of completion. Interestingly enough, one thing I found really interesting is when Jon unsheathes his sword, gents, is the three heads of the dragon. How about the three wolves, the Cerberus of Winterfell, the three heads of the wolf? Very
That's
interesting. Cool. But yeah, and initial final thoughts on the trailer from the panel here, and then we'll you guys have a few minutes for some questions.
Well, we just touched on the idea that Bran wasn't there, and that was kind of the thing that I was waiting to mention. So the other possibility that's sort of related, the reason why he's not there, and specifically the reason why he doesn't have a statue, is because Bran's statue and his tomb will be the Weirwoods, and the Weirwoods already symbolize both statues and tombs anyways, because they hold a bunch of dead spirits, and they have carved faces like a statue, and they even turn to stone after they die, after thousands of years. So essentially, this leads you to think that maybe Bran's fate will be some sort of dissolution in the Weirwood net, whether that means sacrificing himself to destroy the Night's King on the astral plane, or just growing old and eventually he's going to merge into the Weirwood net. Or he has to merge into the Weirwood net completely in order to battle Night's King. I mean, there's a bunch of scenarios that you can conjure up. I just actually on the spot thought of the idea that he might literally be sitting down in a throne at that moment when the others are literally invading the crypts trying to kill him. And that's where the final confrontation will be. I just spun that out of my pocket.
And that would be kind of a repeat scene of what happened at the Weirwood cave, the Beyond the Oak. And we know that we're going to have some repeat moments in Game of Thrones season 8. George likes to have these things happen again that are overlaid into different character storylines and that other characters have experienced. So that kind of blending in.
I see some people joking about Bran can't get down there because he doesn't have a wheelchair, and some people even seriously saying that's like guys, no, that doesn't have anything to do with it. Like if they wanted Bran in the scene, Bran would have been in the scene. Like that was a specific choice that they made.
It would be hard to get his wheelchair down there.
Well, they just carry him down there. I mean, he goes down to the crypts in the books all the time.
Not impossible, just hard. Yeah.
Let's get Sandor to carry him like a new Hodor. I love that.
Yeah, that's true. He is. Yeah,
he carried the undead boxed white thingy in King's Landing and threw it down. So I don't think it would be a stretch to get the new Professor Xavier down there.
And then I see people saying that, oh well, Bran's not there because he's the Night King and he's the Mist, and that's just, I mean. It's all subjective. You have whatever opinions you want, but I just think that's overthinking it. Like the Mist is the others. The others are coming to kill them, and Bran's whole mission is going to be fighting the others. He's probably going to sacrifice his young little life to defeat the others, and all you people who are accusing him of being the Night King are going to feel bad and guilty.
Even though I'm
impugning the nature of this young boy.
Even though I'm banned from Twitter, I did make one comment in agreement, in agreement with David this morning, talking about how Bran has a Frodo-like destiny, and his destiny is separate from the three Starks. And I think that's the symbolism that we're seeing in this scene, that Bran kind of has to do his own thing that is, with the Night King, and then the rest of the realm kind of has to figure out everything else. But
Well,
Bran has kind of, yeah.
Bran's
the
the lone wolf. The rest of the pack survives. I mean, it's
Jinx.
it's kind of a thing at this point, right? He is literally the lone wolf.
Yeah, and what he and this is in reference to what David brought up earlier when the lone wolf dies, the pack survives, and Aziz is talking about Bran handing the dagger to Arya, and then Sansa saying this. Very interesting. Maybe Bran could be the lone wolf because he has this lone wolf type of destiny, and like he has to. I don't want to use the one true ring, but or Voldemort. I like to bring up Harry Potter a lot, but he is tied to the Night King, at least in the show, anyways, and he's touched by him. So them having to, their consciousness both having to be dead for this conflict to end is a possibility.
Well, if we're trying to understand the roots of the Bran is Night King theory, that would be it. There is a connection between the two of them, but it's not that they are literally one being, but their destinies are intertwined. It does seem that Bran will be the most important of the group of them. Well, whether he's part of the group literally or not, whatever. The most important character in the team of them that defeats the Night King. And his mission is to his role in that is the most unique, the most likely to result in his own sacrifice, probably. So I think that's what it's at. It's literally they are very tied together, but not their identities aren't tied together. It's their fates, their destinies, etc. They're destined to fight each other or something like that, but not to. Yeah.
One interesting thing, panel, is that Samwell didn't get killed when the White Walkers and their army were getting past, and then we had the stare-off between the Night King and Jon at Hardhome. I certainly think if the Night King wanted to kill Jon at Hardhome, he might have been able to. I mean, it looks like he was just kind of toying with them there. I mean, they got massacred at Hardhome. So it'd be interesting because who would the Night King go for at Winterfell? Would it be Bran? Would it be Jon? Like, does the Night King see Jon Bran? Like, I think so too. What do you guys think about this? Would the Night King go after Bran, you think, or would it be Jon? Like, who's the more important person to kill in this scenario?
It's Bran, because Bran is the one with the connection to the Weirwood Net, and the Weirwood Net is the most powerful thing. That's the thing that's central and important, I think. And Bran is literally taking the place of Bloodraven after he died. And it's like, why was Night King trying to kill Bloodraven? Because he was the three-eyed crow. And this is actually what I was going to add in a minute ago, is that I love to look at archetypes because I feel like George creates his own archetypes. Azor Ahai Reborn is an archetype, and that's why multiple people can act like Azor Ahai Reborn. Nissa Nissa is an archetype. You go on and on. Robert is a Garth archetype, and there's other Garth, like Septon Moon, we noticed from Fire and Blood, is the spitting image of Garth and Robert in so many ways because it's an archetype. So Night's King is an archetype. And there's several people that play that role, Euron, Crow's Eye being one. And there's a couple of people from history as well. And the three-eyed crow, or the head green seer, is also an archetype. And there are several characters that fit into that, which I don't even need to go into. But the point is that Night's King and the three-eyed crow are opposite archetypes. And their whole destiny is to oppose each other. They are the chess masters on the board. So they're not the same person. They have joined destinies, just like the others in the Night's Watch do, but they're not the same person. They are the opposite players. So I just wanted to add that layer to it.
Interestingly enough, some people are saying Baby Sam in the chat. I definitely think that is something that's interesting enough as well. We have a couple more donations, and then you guys have a little bit more time to open up some questions before we got to go. Anybody got to go? Take off?
Questions are fine with me.
Perfect. So just a couple of quick shout outs here. Bubba Husky says, sorry I'm late. Both Ned and Arya's statue have swords and sorry, that was another comment. Both Ned and Arya's statues have swords, and Jon has an empty sheath, round beers and coffee for Aziz on me. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you, sir.
We love that. And Martin, the show will end with an egg hatching into the three-headed Targ dragon and ice emerging in May fight Godzilla. Okay.
Whoa.
That
goes in the bold predictions category.
I got a little head rush on that one reading that.
Barristan in the bold predictions category.
a good comment from the chat here, real quick.
Yeah.
We always like to
let's open it up. Let's open it up.
So yeah, so somebody's pointing out Usurf said, so is the old Night's Queen locked up in the lower crypts beyond the blockage, and is that what the Night King really wants? That's something that Joe Magician and I talked about on our live stream, and that is a really cool possibility and idea that it's actually Night's Queen imprisoned down there, and you know, Night's King is looking for his queen, right? So I like the idea that he either wants to make Daenerys his new Night's Queen, or maybe like he's, you know, the old Night's Queen is in there trapped, and he wants to be reunited with his chilly love. That gives Night's King a cool motivation. So
I've heard that one as well before. Sorry, Prince, that wasn't promised. Missed your donation. We love you too, my man. Yeah, that, I mean, being locked beneath kind of like in this stasis in the hot springs, like Winterfell kind of being this prison for the Night Queen would certainly be interesting. JR, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there's going to be a Night Queen in the show? At least I don't.
I hope there is. There's got to be some kind of motivation there. Whether it was supposed to be Lyanna, or if there was an old pact that existed between the Starks and the Children of the Forest and the others. We know they can be negotiated with. The Great Other, you know, they negotiated with Craster for all of his sons. So there's some level of intelligence that we know there is. I really hope they do something with it. It would be kind of a waste to me for it to just fall apart with no Night's Queen whatsoever, or not even a piece of dialogue about it. It'd be a shame. That's just my thoughts.
He just wants to find his Elsa.
Elsa's there. Well, he just might have to let it go, man. I don't know.
Let it go. Let it go.
And gig him, Carl. I saw you.
Yeah, so there's some trolling in chat for that.
Yeah, well, actually, there's...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Okay, so Robert is in some ways a Night's King parallel. I'm not even going to go into why, but he is willing to kill as many people as possible because he cannot get his love. And his love, Lyanna, is a lady of the Blue Winter Rose, who actually is a Night's Queen archetype figure, like I was sort of alluding to a minute ago. So this idea of a warrior king who used, and the others very much play as modified Garth figures. If you look at Garth, the Garth archetype is like Cernunnos, the Stag Man, the Green Man. The others play very much like frozen versions of a woods creature. And so the idea that Robert is like killing everyone that he has to get his stolen Night's Queen figure, that could resonate with Night's King trying to fight his way back to Night's Queen in the crypts. And that overlays Lyanna and Night's Queen in the crypts very nicely, which is something that Joe and I riffed on a little bit.
That's really funny. By the way, I started giggling barely audibly there during your, not because of anything you said, but because Helena, who again we're talking about her trolling, she got you good there. She said Robert is an in deep geek. So I was just picturing Robert in deep geek doing all those things, like he's killing all these people and just like wants his love back, like he can't, you know, he's in a rage, like with his warhammer.
Well, yeah, Robert, yeah, In Deep has quite the personal life. He keeps it, you know, under wraps, but actually he's got quite a few stories to tell. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why he keeps the camera higher up on his face, because below it's just bloody. It's just covered in gore.
Indeed, Geek, we need you for comment. We know you will be at Con of Thrones, but we're gonna need your hot take on this, my man.
Since I mentioned Joe Magician, I should shout him out. They're doing a live stream later, him and Gray Area, and they're going to talk about this, talk about the promo in season 8. And of course, Joe has had some cool things to say about the promo, so I'm dropping that link in the chat right now. Just dropped it in there.
Also, if you do want to, I know most of you know who Aziz and LML are, but if you do want to go check out their channels, the links to their channels are in the description of this video. So you can go subscribe to their channels, check out their content, and of course, JR, GeekChat1. We always have a link in the description of the video for our GeekChat1 community on Facebook, where we like to nerd out and talk about all sorts of things, A Song of Ice and Fire, Marvel, all of that. So you can find all the links to that in the description.
If I could, especially if you haven't checked it out, if you are new to my channel, we did a video specifically on Crypts of Winterfell, and it's called Crypts of Winterfell. So, actually, it might be the Crypts of Winterfell. I forget, but
I think it's the Crypts of Winterfell.
I think it is so I already screwed up here. But no, and we got to, it's a fun to question thing. I don't think we entertained is Night Queen trapped in the crypts theory, which is pretty cool actually. I like the idea of the one idea I got just burbling in my head as you mentioned that was that's why they're stealing babies to breed, because they don't have their queens. It's like their aunts or zerglings, because they can only there's only one female that's like provides all the eggs.
The children of the forest, we only see female children of the forest and male.
That's very distinct and clearly on purpose. So I do wonder about that. And so their ability to procreate is very limited by design, it seems, but they may have maybe found a loophole. Clearly there were some unintended consequences of their entire existence. I don't think the children intended this. I mean, it's quite clear from what they've said that this is not what they intended.
Yeah, that's not really a theory on some level.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's why I don't think they intended to wipe themselves out, and that's happened as well. Like, of course, the First Men are a part of that, and the Andals as well. But as we saw there, the Whites were taking out the last few children, so that's probably not the first time that's happened. So we can probably assume.
There's a couple cool comments in the chat that are related here from Misty and Mandolin, who are of course good folks. And so Misty's asking if maybe Night's Queen is trying to get to Lyanna to resurrect Lyanna as a new Night's Queen, and then Mandolin wonders, maybe they need Sansa to make a Night's Queen because she's a Stark. And that actually makes even a little more sense. She's not dead for 20 years.
Yes.
But either option is really creepy. Me and Joe talked about the idea that they were coming for Lyanna's bones. But if you think about the show, and so Arya and Jon have very obvious roles to play against the others. Sansa's role, like we were saying, is more political. It's more, relational and stuff like that. But what if they come up with a way to rope her into the others in the magical plot line? One of the ways they could do that was maybe the others need a Stark female to sort of like breed new others, because Craster's gone and stuff. So that would be kind of freaky, right? Like they're coming for Sansa, and Bran can figure that out. And
in the trailer, David, it's very interesting. Arya and Jon step up, and Sansa doesn't have a weapon. So we know that Arya and Jon are going to do fighting. So, but Sansa, she's not a fighter. So that is an interesting take.
Does she have to become one though?
Yeah, I don't know. That's
the leader of fighters.
Yeah,
certainly. She has command ability.
I don't think it makes sense for Sansa to end as a Night's Queen. I think that would be something they would try to make her. If someone's going to sacrifice themselves to become a Night's Queen, that would fit Dany, because that would be Dany basically not becoming the bad guy, but rather doing something awful that's necessary in order to pacify the others, kind of a thing. But I don't think that fits Sansa, because Sansa has been captured and abused the whole time and has been working her way towards more agency. And so to make her have to make herself a prisoner at the end, that would kind of ruin her character, in my opinion.
And symbolically, what Dany was wearing last season when she went beyond the wall, she was wearing that very interesting attire. And the House of the Undying vision in the show, symbolically, when she goes beyond the wall into the storm, and there's that purgatory-like state with Khal Drogo, she resists the temptation of staying there. So maybe that's foreshadowing that she becomes, I don't know, that's her destiny, is to more be a Night Queen or something like that. So that's a possibility.
Yeah, I actually favor the idea that it's Jon, if anybody, that has to become a new Night's King or something, or become an other in order to pacify them, because I think his symbolism is consistent with being the prince who was promised ... to the others, and that is an important thing. So I actually think that he's the most likely to do that, if anyone. But we were just sort of riffing on the idea that they're looking for a new Night's Queen. I think it makes more sense as something they're trying to do to Sansa, but won't be able to do, obviously. But it would put Sansa in more peril that has to do with the magical plot lines, which would make sense from a writing standpoint. I could see why they would.
She's had almost nothing to do with the magic at all. Well, pretty much, like almost literally nothing until she's in Winterfell.
Basically
If we could jump back slightly too, the idea that because something you mentioned before, Kyle, briefly, or I think it was you, Kyle, mentioning that they ignored Sam. This is when I first saw that, I thought it was a little silly. Then I realized that I was being silly, thinking it was silly because it was actually similar to what the books have already shown us. The others let several Rangers go. They just didn't care about them. And it may have been not just that they didn't care, that it was by design because they wanted to spread fear. We have Garrett, and obviously in the books and show, it's reversed which one of them gets away. In the show, the younger one gets away, and in the books, the younger one is strangled by Waymar Royce, and it's the old one who gets away. And that's important because he gets away and flees, and that's really meaningful that a 40-year veteran of the Watch is so terrified that he runs so hard that he doesn't even stop to tell anybody. It's still meaningful with the younger guy doing it, but it just goes to show the others were either letting them go on purpose to spread fear, or a combination of they just didn't care because they have a target or targets in mind. And it's not those guys.
And what's interesting is that Sam and Jon are super important parts to the end game. So we don't know exactly what the Night King's goal is. I like to think it's like mutually assured destruction. Like he's been in this icy-like state. He'll either get what he wants or die trying. So letting Sam go and Jon go, I mean, they have some sort of prophecy that they know about Jon and Sam being important. And I mean, the Night King ended up getting a dragon and breaking down the wall. So letting Jon go at Hardhome, like if that was his thing, then Jon basically enabled him because he knew that Daenerys was going to come save Jon. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but I mean, it is kind of coincidental, in some sort of ways. So, I think I have an interesting way that we can end the stream here, and I think that chat would really enjoy this. How about we all kind of give our own speculative foreshadowing based on what we've seen here today, and maybe kind of like an end game theory show only based on kind of what we've seen in this trailer. Is everyone down for that, or do we want to take some more questions?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Like David said, there's maybe not. We don't want to go too far with just what this trailer tells us about Endgame, but there's definitely a few things here we can go. So maybe, that sounds fun.
JR, I know you definitely have some thoughts, my man.
I'm going to go with this is for me as a good nod to the raising of the Kings of Winter. I want that one to be true. I like Tolkien. I like what he did with it. And yes, it's a ripoff, whatever. But George was inspired by Tolkien, and he was inspired by comic books. And there's a lot of stuff that reflects in his writing that shows us that. And so I could see him paying homage to one of his mentors, basically. Or, he's a fanboy at heart, right? So he's going to pay an homage to them. So I'm going with my end game for this trailer. That's going to be the Kings of Winter.
That certainly would make Gemma happy, who is currently in chat.
Yes, it
would. David.
So I think I've already thrown out some good foreshadowing. I think there's a little bit of foreshadowing that maybe Sansa is it's not only different in Jon and Arya in that she's not a fighter, but that maybe the others would be coming for her to try to take her. I came up with it, but I kind of like it. So there's that. And I think the more heavy foreshadowing is that Bran doesn't have a statue because he's not going to die like everyone else. He's going to die in a different way. That'll be inside the Weirwood net. The question is, was that something that will happen before the show's over? I really feel like he's going to be a sacrifice. That's the whole thing about like the Raven asking for corn from him. Like that's his seed. That's his vitality that the Raven is taking from him. His legs are taken. He is like the Corn King. He's the brand. He's the sacrifice for the people so that the people can eat. And I think that's where that's going. So I think that's happening. And other foreshadowing is that's like I said, that there's more secrets to be revealed in the crypts than just RLJ. They're pairing RLJ with this idea that there's a link between the Starks and the others, and they're showing you that that's coming all to a head in the crypts. So to me, this foreshadows more action in the crypts and maybe the others fighting and invading in there. And like I said, maybe Bran's got a throne down there. So I love it. All this, the focus on the crypts really makes some of the ideas we already had just sort of run wild. It makes us hope that the show's going to use some of these things.
Yeah, it's kind of validating.
certainly very important in the books. We haven't got a ton about the Crypts of Winterfell in the show. Aziz.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what LML said, in particular, or especially the parts about Bran and what it tells us there. And I think that, yeah, it's something that has been kicked around a bit and is more confirmed by this. It certainly moves, I would say it moves the needle. And the idea that there will be a literal fight in the crypts, or the others will actually infiltrate the crypts, I think is a little bit reinforced by this teaser. And as well as that it will be imperative for them to work together in a sense. I think that's something, you know, not exactly unexpected revelation there, but important that they reinforced it. And as well, I want to say that this like David said, it kind of reinforces the idea that there is some other blood in the Starks, or vice versa, or vice versa, I should say. And I want to also point out that Fire and Blood has some interesting takes on how some of that can be relevant. The mentions of things like First Night, which are kind of gross, but the fact that the tradition was in the North and has been for so long, and that it used to be considered maybe a blessing, could date back to something like this, where there's this blood being passed around, and it works really well as a parallel to the Targaryens having literal dragon blood. If you have Targaryens having literal dragon blood, have the Starks have literal others' blood, whatever that means. So there's a lot of satisfying full circle type things that would come to play with there. So anyway, yeah. So that's I know that's a lot to talk about from one teaser, but it just touches on these ideas that were already out there. Like David said, it kind of sparks pre-existing ideas and brings them back to the front. It's not that the teaser actually contained all these ideas on their own. It's that the fandom has done this work already, and it's like, yeah, there's that thing that we already knew about. There's that thing that we talked about. So yeah, that's why we have such strong reactions to these things. It's because the groundwork's already there.
I think personally what's really interesting and really what stood out for me is that Jon is carrying the torch going towards his sisters there. I think that Jon is, if we are going to have a Lightbringer, he's going to either wield it or be that person who brings people together. And I think it's really interesting that Bran isn't in the Crypts of Winterfell, and that we see Jon, Arya, and Sansa together. Because I think those are the three surviving Starks at the end of the story. I actually think Bran's physical body is going to die, and that Arya is going to have to kill Bran. But I'm in agreement with these guys. The Crypts of Winterfell are very important. I think that we need some sort of payoff in the show that we haven't got yet for the Crypts of Winterfell. It's super important to the Stark storyline and to revealing some of the history that we haven't got from A Song of Ice and Fire so far. So, yeah, chat, thank you so much for being here. Really awesome stream. Oh, David, go ahead.
Yeah, well, there's a couple things one thing from the chat I wanted to pull out. So people are asking, we're talking about what's the motivation of the Night's King. So maybe he's just looking for a good surgeon to get that dragon glass out, which leads me to believe that the last scene of this series will be a creepy surgery scene with Qyburn, fishing out that dragon glass bit from Night's King's chest. And then he'll just die a peaceful death, and Qyburn will be like, "You're beautiful," and that'll be it.
What if Samwell does it though? Does it have the same effect?
Well, can we get no? But it needs two. That's it. Both of them, like Samwell.
He's still gonna need
Qyburn.
blood so he doesn't freeze. So I guess that would be a connection, because he had to wear gloves while doing it to Jorah.
Valyrian steel gauntlets. That's what you need.
Anything for a prop.
Oh,
awesome,
yes.
Chat guys. Thank you so much for the idea of bringing all of us together today, David, LML, and thank you for the panel for showing up today. Chat.
We'll just fish that out of there, sir. We'll just sort of just fish it out.
Wow, this stream is ending on a meme, per usual. Most professional podcaster in A Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones. Thank you again to the panel. Like I said, you can find the links to all their description to their channels in the description of this video. JR, where can we find you and what's next for you, my man?
You can always find us on GeekChat1 on Facebook. In fact, join the chat right now because I'm sure we'll be discussing this a little bit further on there. And if you're looking for whoever's going to have videos dropping or who's going to be on live streams, always check out the announcements. We keep David's up. We keep History of Westeros is up. We keep, Robert Indy keeps Secrets of the Citadel. We try to keep everybody's information updated on announcements for where everybody's going to be at. And I'm a huge fan of Danza Forever now.
You know what? That's a new thing. We're keeping it here.
Yeah, Danza's staying.
Danza, it's going to piss off a lot of people, so I like it even more. David, LML, can we find you? What's up next for you?
I'm easy to find. It's all about Lucifer Means Lightbringer. That's the name of the website. It's lucifermeanslightbringer.com. That's my YouTube channel. I have a second YouTube channel called Between Two Weirwoods with a number 2. And that's my live discussion panel channel. And we're going to be having a Between Two Weirwoods this upcoming Sunday. It's called Mechanisms of Magic. And we're going to geek out on all like how the magic tech might work and how blood magic works and why and all that fun stuff. The horns, hinges of the world, blood magic, only death can pay for life. And my guests will be Joe Magician, Emmett, a.k.a. Poor Quentin from Nauticast, and Amanda Crowfood's daughter. So I'm very excited about that. Been trying to put it together for a long time. It's going to be super nerdy. And if anybody likes magic and fantasy, which should be everyone except for like Brendan B. Fish, then come on down. And all you curmudgeons who voted for taking magic out of A Song of Ice and Fire and Joe Magician's chaos poll that he put on Twitter. But in any case, that's where you can find me. Lucifer Means Lightbringer, Between Two Weirwoods. And I'll be live this upcoming Sunday at 3 Eastern.
And also, me and LML have discussed doing a mythology podcast together at some point. We'll get that organized for you. We have been having a little bit of a discussion behind closed doors. We want to talk more about the hero's journey and whatnot. So that would be cool. And Aziz, of course, History of Westeros.
Right on. Well, we have been doing weekly Fire and Blood streams on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. Those have been a lot of fun. Lots of chats and good times and breaking down the new material, which is one of the most fun parts of the fandom, as we are doing here, breaking down new material. So I imagine I'll get together with our show-only fellow Sean and maybe do a little analysis of our own on this trailer, see what he wants to do. Other than that, we just finished our episode on Gagasos, which is all about blood magic alterations and the wake of the fall of Valyria and cool stuff like that, getting into the nature of Targaryen's blood and fun stuff like that. That's going to be a patrons only episode. We haven't done one of those in about a year, but that's going to be up about tomorrow, roughly. So yeah, lots of stuff going on our end. So yeah, it's a great time for the fandom. We got a new book, we got the season coming up, and we got a lot of people putting out great analysis. So it's just great. Really jazzed about all that.
Awesome. And like I said, once again, thank you everyone in chat for joining us. Of course, if you do want more Game of Thrones and Song of Ice and Fire analysis, you can go check out Joe Magician in Gray Area. Do you know which channel it's on, David? Is it on Joe's channel or Gray's channel tonight?
Joe's channel, and I dropped the link once already. I'll drop it again right now. Oh, nope, that's not it. That's my comment. Let's see here. I've got it right here. 1 second.
Excellent. And also go check out
8 Eastern, by the way.
8 Eastern. Okay. So Joe Magician's channel, you go check that out. I'll add it in the link in the description of this video after we're off the air here, so you guys can go check that out easier. And of course, thank you to everyone in chat. All the generous donations today, those will be shared amongst these awesome, handsome men at Con of Thrones. Once again, thanks for joining us, and we will see you in the next video. Hype and love.